Hello, magic makers, and welcome back to the Metaphysical Apothecary. We are your hosts, Megan and Shannon. We are also known as the Scorpio Sisters, and we are here to explore the mysterious, magical, and the arcane.
This is the last part of the first episode of the Metaphysical Apothecary's Curses, Hexes, and Black Magic. Oh my. Enjoy!
One of the categories of magic associated often with dark and black magic are hexes, curses, and banishings. And these are very controversial in the magical community.
Yes. Should you do it? Shouldn't you do it? Are you a bad person for working it?
Or is it sometimes necessary? Are there sometimes ethical reasons why you might need to do these things? Not necessarily want to do them, but necessary. Banishings are pretty self-explanatory. It's kind of like a magical restraining order. So you're keeping someone away from you and your loved ones, like that Tupac quote, "I want you to eat, just not at my table." So you're essentially just pushing the person out of your sphere of influence. They're toxic or they're dangerous, and you just need them to be out of your life or out of your family's life. I have definitely done banishings for people who were doing damage to our families. I don't know who you've done banishings on.
I've done a banishing on that girlfriend that was attempting to manipulate my brother into a long-term relationship. I've done a banishing on my mother's boss, who was a very toxic person, and she was toxic to herself. So part of my banishing was, please find something that makes you happy.
That's a key part of banishings, too. In many cases, it's the intention of, I just want you out. And hopefully when you're away from my influence, you find a way to heal yourself, or you find the lifestyle that works for you and makes you a less toxic person.
Yeah, a lot of the workings that I've done for me, well, I hope you getting a better position on the other side of the country.
Right, which presumably would make that person happier and more well-balanced anyway.
Yes, because that seems to be what they want. That's what they're gunning for. That's what they're pushing for. That's where their toxicity is coming from.
Exactly.
They're trying in some way, shape, or form to make my life worse.
Or stepping on you will somehow elevate them, and you're casting them away from energy that frankly may be toxic to them.
Yes. And hopefully they realize that themselves, but if they don't, that's on them.
Exactly. What we need to focus on is making sure that our sphere of influence is clear of toxic energies. In some cases, that involves forcing someone to leave it.
Yeah.
There are cases, however, in which you can't force someone to leave your sphere of influence, or they're just not going to. A hex may be more appropriate. You had defined hexes for me the other day.
Hexes are workings or spell work directed at a person's behavior, not necessarily the person themselves. Toxic behavior. Gossip is the easiest thing to use as an example. Someone is bad-mouthing you, whether it's at work or at school or wherever it is. And rather than punishing the person, you are hexing the behavior. So as long as they gossip about you, karma is something that's going to happen. Whether you've termed it to be they get tongue-tied, maybe they get dry mouth, not the dental, oral, medical dry mouth, but like they suddenly need water in order to continue speaking, or they get a pebble in their shoe every time they do this until their behavior changes, and then the hex is no longer valid. Once they stop doing that behavior, the hex won't continue.
So the hex goes dormant once their behavior changes, and by that definition, a hex is a way to get someone to change behavior that is somehow harmful or makes you distractingly uncomfortable or something of that nature.
Yeah, that's how I use hexing. And in folk traditions, that's how hexes were used as a form of correction. You are doing this, so until you stop, this is going to happen. And it's not going to reflect on me because you're the one who's implementing it by continuing this behavior.
Exactly. The other ethical question that comes up involving hexing is, do we go right to hexing, or do we try to address it directly, address the behavior directly with the person, or try another avenue? For instance, if you are being bullied or gossiped about at work, do you go to HR first, or do you go right to hexing? When is it appropriate to take that step?
I think that's going to depend entirely on individual circumstance. If it's at work, you should probably go to HR whether or not you're going to hex the person or not. There's no or in that situation. You need to take care of practical matters. And if there's something that's happening at work, you need a paper trail. That means you need to go to HR in order to deal with it.
Right.
you also feel the necessary action of hexing a behavior as well, then by all means, that's something that you feel is necessary.
Personally, almost a last resort. You've examined the situation and perhaps you've spoken to the person. If you feel comfortable and safe doing so, you may not always feel like you can address the situation without getting some sort of retaliation thrown back at you, especially if they're above you in rank, if perhaps they have more seniority than you, or perhaps it's a family member. Those are the situations in which hexes are the most appropriate because it is a practical recourse. It's something that you can do to make sure that you are safe, that you are protected, that you're correcting this toxic behavior that is really wearing down on you, because having that happen to you is very demeaning. It's very diminishing to your spirit.
Mm-hmm. Most of the time, anything that is heck-worthy is unfortunately seen as something that you should be able to put up with or address in a different way. And sometimes, as you said, that's not possible, right? There are situations which sometimes addressing the situation, confronting it head on, only makes it worse.
Exactly. My personal opinion is that if there is another way to address it, you should try that first before we go right into making this person get paper cuts or whatever you decide is appropriate, because they may not be doing it intentionally. They may not realize that it's bothering you as much as it is. I come from a family where poking fun and teasing and that sort of thing is one of the ways that we show affection. As I've gotten older, I started to realize that that is not part of my love language. That is not something that makes me comfortable. It makes me recede into myself. And so it's something that I've had to address with members of my family where I've said, I don't really like this. Please don't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, the behavior has stopped because I addressed it head on. If they had kept doing it, despite my repeated reminders that I don't like that, the magical clause, so to speak, may have come out at that point.
My approach to hexing is, what is more work? Because a hex does involve a great deal of intention setting and making sure you have all the tools to keep yourself focused on what your intention is. Mm-hmm. And sometimes confronting the person is just easier.
That's very true.
There's not as much work involved as it would be to hex a person.
Right.
If I feel that the hex would work quicker, better, and be less work for me in the long run, then I'm going to hex than confront the person.
Right.
So I'm not going to take into consideration whether or not it's something that I should be doing, or is there another way to approach this? I'm taking it from a perspective of what is the most work for me at this point in time and in the long run.
Also, if the hex is less work than addressing it head on, then it means that the hex may be warranted. Because if you feel as though addressing the behavior head on and trying to go through the proper channels is not going to get you the results that you need and perhaps even make the situation worse, that's going to be more work. And so just getting it done through a magical means is both less work and possibly safer for you.
Mm-hmm. Those are the qualifications that I tend to use in whether or not a behavior needs to be addressed in one way or the other.
When you and I are talking about this, I have to assume that we are talking about hexes that are non-lethal and not cause any permanent injury, disease, or anything along those lines.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of hexing, even in the research, true hexing, that is lethal. It's supposed to be uncomfortable and nagging more than it's supposed to be maiming and lethal.
So it's irritating more than it is anything.
Now, that's not to say that you don't have practitioners who haven't figured out a way to do that.
Right.
But when we are talking about hexing, I know I am talking about, if you just stop doing A, you wouldn't get a pebble in your shoe.
Right. And from an ethical standpoint, if you stay away from anything that is illegal in the mundane world, such as causing another physical injury, disease, anything like that, then you're probably okay ethically as well.
Yes.
There are definitely some gray areas there, but this is in general, which is very different from a curse, because cursing is also a more dangerous method of dealing with someone who is causing you some sort of personal danger or harm.
Yeah, a lot of times cursing is seen as a vengeful measure that they will take. Mm-hmm. A curse is something that is permanent until broken.
Right.
It's not riding on a behavior that you don't like, a toxic behavior that is somehow making you uncomfortable, someone in your family uncomfortable. It's not at the behavior, it's at the person.
So it's a personal attack, not a situational attack.
Yeah.
And curses can be annoying, benign things like having a pebble in your shoe or getting a paper cut when you reach page 316 of a book.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes they're associated with much more dangerous consequences for the person receiving the curse.
Yes. There have been public curses laid out, and they're not irritating small curses. They're big curses that, for whatever reason, the person felt justified in doing because of revenge or even a sense of justice.
Right. And of course, that brings up all sorts of ethical questions that we don't have the time or the expertise to answer about whether or not revenge is okay, whether or not we're qualified to mete out justice as witches. But those are some of the questions that come up with things like cursing.
Mm-hmm. There's a bigger picture, because when people think of curses, they just think, you cursed me with the evil eye or something like that, which can happen. There are unintentional curses that can be laid down on a person, or you can lay down upon yourself.
Exactly. It's a law of attraction in action.
Most of the time, the image of a curse being laid down by a practitioner is very intentional, but it's not always intentional. So back throughout history, someone is giving you the evil eye, and that is a way to lay down a curse. So the evil eye can be very intentional, be laid down by someone staring at you and wishing ill upon you. It will also be accidental if someone is being jealous of you for something that you have and they don't. They give you a negative look because they are in longing or they are in a land of desire that they want something they can't have. They can also end up cursing you with the evil eye.
This is interesting. So would you say, since they're projecting energy out from themselves and projecting it, reflecting it at you, would you say that curses could be part of white magic or light magic rather than dark and black?
Yes, curses are, at least the evil eye is more likely to be a projection, so it would be more likely to be white magic than black magic.
Whereas the self-cursing, where you're placing yourself in the victim state or you're activating the law of attraction and putting yourself in a lower vibration, that's more black magic territory.
Yeah, that starts out as black magic.
So it's all a gray area.
There is no definition of any one particular type of magic that can be used to lay a curse or to break a curse for that matter. You can use any type of magic to do that.
It's almost an instinctual thing that human beings do, which is very unsettling, where they talk about the evil eye, they talk about if looks could kill.
Whether it's a curse being laid down upon you by someone else, intentionally, unintentionally, accidentally, or you doing it to yourself, most people will automatically jump to attempting to break a curse by doing magical means.
Okay.
They will go to another witch or practitioner and pay for a curse breaking, but it's more practical to look at your physical body and try to figure out what symptoms are happening and address it in the mundane world, so that way it can almost ricochet back through your ethereal bodies, your emotional body, your mental body, your astral body. So if it's coming at you from an astral point and it's gotten to you in the physical where you're actually feeling it, the best thing to do is to make sure you take care of your physical body.
Okay, that's very interesting. You can actually break a curse by practicing self-care from the physical body and project that out through the subtle body, the ethereal body, the psychic body, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, the curse is coming at you from the outside in, and you need to attack it from the inside out.
Okay. So, for instance, if you find yourself constantly nauseated at a certain time of day, how would you address that?
If you're nauseated at a certain time of day, you need to reevaluate what you're doing at that point in time. Are you eating the same things? Are you eating at the same time? How much are you eating? What are you drinking? What scents are around you at that point in time? If you're at work and you're getting nauseated at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and maybe around 1:50, there's a particular person who comes around with the most nauseating cologne or perfume that's triggering it. You need to make sure you are not at your seat at 1:50.
Right. So you'll tell.
Yeah, you'll be able to tell what's my environment, what is causing my discomfort. Is it from a curse that is coming from a magical psychic attack, or is it from an external source where someone is just not aware of how horrible that scent truly is?
And could it possibly be both? Could somebody be laying the curse down on you that when you smell Stetson cologne, you'll get nauseated?
That's something that you used to love, or this is how most of the curses I've interacted with end up happening. There is a person who is extremely jealous that you ended up with the person they wanted, whether it was their ex or someone they wanted for their current boo.
Right. Very common motivation.
Happening is that you will get nauseated.
Right.
And that will have an effect on you and or the partner you are with. Because if they love that perfume, maybe it reminds them of their grandparents. Maybe it reminds them of a place that they visited a long time ago with a person that they no longer have with them.
So curses can have effects that are completely unintentional, but they weave their way. They kind of spread their roots out into parts of your life beyond just the physical effect of them also.
A lot of the times, the intent is more or less to cause discomfort and or harm, whether it's to end a relationship or worse.
Right. So in the case of the cologne that's making the person nauseated because of the curse, by the way that you described that you should break the curse, would the answer be for the person to stop wearing that particular scent?
For a period of time, that is exactly what you should end up doing, is you signal out what is making you nauseous. You have to avoid that particular scent for a period of time until you've gotten your body back into your control and your balance. In order to get you in a state of being of discomfort, something in your astral, etherical, subtle body had to be skewed in order to reach your physical body.
Inward and figure out what is off balance inside of you and dig that out.
Some of the best ways of breaking curses, once you started to realize what the problems are, gone through it's this perfume, or I'm getting a pinch in my chest, I can't wear this brassiere anymore, I can't wear this corset anymore, I have a pounding feeling in my chest, let me go to the doctor.
Right.
You should also be going to get rid of the kinks in your subtle body.
Absolutely. The other thing that can really help when you're thinking about helping your subtle body is by going to a chiropractor who will help get your spine back into alignment, which is where your chakras live, which is where the energy flows from your tailbone up through the crown of your head to the cosmos.
Yeah. In fact, that might be something that you want to do in tandem with a Reiki master or your Western practitioner.
And sometimes they'll have a practice together.
Another thing you can do will be aromatherapy.
Okay.
Scents that are very good at breaking negativity in general is rosemary.
Yeah. It really is wonderful for that.
Another really good scent is lavender.
I really love lemon, too, for clearing things out.
It will go after negative energy, just as the other two will as well. Tea tree.
Yeah, that'll knock anything out. Is also actually extremely powerful. It gets in there and it just works over a length of time. It just doesn't sting.
And this is all ways of breaking the curse without even having to send energy back to the person who's cursed you.
Right, exactly.
Especially if you don't know if it's yourself. But if you happen to have someone who laid a curse on you accidentally by giving you the evil eye out of sheer jealousy, do you really want to cause them the same damage that they were causing you? They didn't do it on purpose. We all have negative stray thoughts. It's just part of being human.
And even if the cursing was intentional, do you really want to get into an energetic battle with someone who has enough malice toward you to do something like that on purpose to begin with? So if you're able to just get rid of it and not have to get into it with them and then maybe banish them from your sphere of influence.
So if you can get rid of it without having to engage them or even let them know that it's being taken care of, making sure that your clothes are fitting you properly or that they're not pinching you, they're not too old, they're not too new. When we were talking about this before, you mentioned shoes, like making sure the shoes fit your feet.
Yep. The crux of all of these magics has to do with the practitioner's intention. Whether or not the result is something that is malicious and harmful or draws out an entity that is malicious and harmful, or the outcome is healing or drawing prosperity to you or creating a protection spell to help a loved one. It's all about the person's intention. Black and dark magic as evil magic doesn't really exist.
No, it does not whatsoever. Everything is a shade of gray until you throw yourself into the mix and you color the magic.
Oh, I like that. You color the magic.
That's all we have on the topic for today. Thank you so much for listening in, and we hope you'll join us again next time. In the meantime, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and go to our blog for some more witchy wisdom, as well as check out some of our original art on Society 6 for sacred decor and more. Thank you again for joining us, and go make some magic and live your best life. Bye.
Bye, everyone.